All right. So we will start. I really want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. The reason we've put this webinar together is we've been working with a few customers, one in particular, Hillshire Council, about a solution to enforce load limited roads. So this is something that falls through the cracks at many councils. It's kind of done by compliance, transporter involved. It can be a very manual process unless you have some technology behind it. And we're getting a lot of questions about this technology. So we thought we'd bring a group of people together and we'll go through a case study of like quite a successful customer. I'm Nathan. I head up the customer team here at SenSen. I'm dialed in from the Gold Coast, which is where my office is. We have Kristen on the call. Kristen looks after all of our Australian New Zealand customers. She's dialed in from Bulli. So Kristen and I will present this case study. We've kindly Ben Ibrahim, who's the manager of compliance at Hillshire Council, has kindly agreed to field any council-specific questions at the end. So we're using Teams. You can ask a question with the Teams Ask a Question feature. That will come through to us. So if you're hearing anything at all, just ask a question with the feature, and at the end, we'll go through all the questions and answer them. So you'll be able to do that throughout the presentation. So that's we'll probably just kick off now because I have quite a few people joined in. So thank you for attending, and we'll get on with the webinar. Please feel free to ask questions as you go.
Okay, so today's agenda, we'll be chatting through the compliance challenges faced by councils, how AI can be used to enforce ton limited roads. Then we'll be discussing the Hillshire Council in New South Wales. We'll be using them as a case study. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A and a bit of a panel discussion between Nathan, myself, and Ben from Hillshire Council.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. So at SenSen, we're still learning about the compliance challenges faced by councils. We've been doing vehicle compliance work for federal, state, and local government for over 10 years now, and we're still learning. So this is a new requirement that came to us from Hills Council quite a few years ago in 2022. And it was, what can you do to help us enforce this sort of sign? So you can see the picture in there, and those signs are all around Australia. Most jurisdictions have the ability to enforce those signs. They either use state government transport sort of regulation. I think it can be done under the heavy vehicle national law, but most councils we're talking to are doing it under their state-based thing. So as you would know, there's quite a few stakeholders when you put these signs up. So the community, if they see anything that looks like a truck go along the road and these signs are up, they can generate a lot of requests to council, directly to council as complaints, also directly to councillors, which again then come through as complaints. So what we've worked with Hills on and a few other customers is how we can streamline enforcing this. So we'll go through the presentation, we'll talk about how it used to be enforced and then how it can be done automatically with AI. So the key challenge here is managing all the stakeholders, people doing deliveries, people who miss the signs, people who live on the roads. I think we'll get on to the next slide, talk about people who maintain the roads.
Yes, so yeah, another stakeholder within council is the people who maintain the road. So obviously, you know, trucks are very heavy and they cause a lot of damage to the roads. And this is, you know, not only a pain for, you know, the residents, but the people using the roads, and it costs council a lot of money each year in their maintenance budget to make repairs to these roads. So that's why a lot of the time they put up these signs to say they don't want trucks travelling down the roads, to help keep the roads in good condition, and yeah, reduces their maintenance budgets.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Kristen. So this is essentially the case study we'll take you through. So using AI, smart solar AI cameras to monitor heavy vehicles. We'll give some hard numbers about like how many vehicles were detected doing offences, the value of the fines made, whether they held up in court and the like. So SenSen worked in partnership with Hills to put a heavy vehicle solution in a few roads out there for Hills Shire Council.
So this is what previously was done before we came on board. So obviously the enforcement was a very manual process. So the council officers would have to respond in person. So this might be like the local residents have complained and said, you know, we've seen a lot of trucks on our road. The officers would go out and wait at the entry of the road and wait for a truck. You know, this could take a little while for one to show up, so they're just sitting there waiting. Then they would follow the trucks through to ensure they didn't stop to make a delivery. So trucks are allowed on these roads if they make a delivery or have a legitimate reason to be there. So they would have to follow, you know, half the time maybe the truck stops, does a delivery. Well, that was a waste of time. They need to now go back to the wait at the entry of the road and wait for another truck. So they would go through this process until they found a truck that used the road as a thoroughfare. They would be filming this on their dash cams, so they'd get the evidence of what the truck did. They'd then come back to the council office, download their dash cam recordings. They'd have to save the files, and then they would have to process this by sending a letter to the vehicle owner requesting the driver's details. So this whole process was very manual, very time consuming. And although the value of the fine at the end is quite significant, it really wasn't always a good use of the compliance officer's time. So with this process in mind, Hills reached out to us and said, hey, what can you do to make this more efficient for us?
So we reused some of our existing solar powered technology that was more used for state government sort of level enforcement. And we put solar power with cameras at each end of these tunnel limited roads. So the point of the camera there, it detects every vehicle coming in and snaps some time-stamped evidence of the vehicle. As we're doing that, we use an AI algorithm a model, I think is the word, to filter out all the sedans and hatchbacks, and we only show anything that looks like a truck. But this isn't a system that's integrated with the weight in motion system. It literally visually inspects the vehicles and determines what is and isn't a truck. Because the cameras are at each end of the road, we can time it. I think the timing is the important thing to prove the person was using the road as a rat run and not using it to do a delivery. So if they make it from A to B in less than 5 minutes or whatever the length of the road is, then you can be very confident, and this has actually been tested and stood up in court, you can be very confident the person hasn't stopped to do a delivery, because it's just not possible to stop, do a delivery and make it out the other end in that time. So the system is just filtering out everything that's not a truck, and it's only showing the council officer what they need to see. So you can see in the slide here, it's kind of like there's a photograph of the truck at one end of the road. There's a photograph of a truck at the other end of the road. And you can see that timestamp was about 3 minutes if you look down the bottom where the pink is. So it was first sighted, the entry to the southbound at 10:19, and the second sighting was exiting out to the northbound road at 10:22. So no, the truck was there in both occasions, and it did it in less than 3 minutes. So that's the sort of data that we're able to deliver cleanly to council officers, so they can review that and, I guess, decide what they want to do about that. So once that's done, the council writes to the owner of the truck to provide information of the driver. The driver who's not obeyed the sign. So that's how the system works at a high level. I think we'll jump to the next slide.
So this is you can see the image there. That is what the solution looks like. It's a camera on a pole, and it's powered by solar power. The project first, as Nathan said at the start of the session, the project first started in April of 2022, and it was just a trial basis, and it was operated for just a few months, and then it was redeployed the following year for another 6 months. The project was seen as a success as it did deter trucks for using the overweight trucks for using the road. And it improved the quality of life for local residents. I think a really big point to point out is that the local residents actually requested they return the poles to these locations. The image that you see there, there's someone's house is just sort of in front where the person is standing to take the photo. And this person actually requested to have the solution put back in because they could see that it was definitely deterring the trucks and making their road a lot more pleasant to live on. So this was seen as a really big success, and the community really got behind the project. And from there, Hillshire Council decided to roll out the project again.
Yeah, so this slide shows the stats from the second time the system was rolled out. And I think one thing to consider if you're thinking of such a system, you can't have your compliance team's time tied up monitoring this sort of system the whole time. I think Ben and the Hills team have said they kind of do it 6 months on, 6 months off, because it's like a special project for them to enforce it. And the more you use the system, the more people get to know of it and they don't do the wrong thing. So a bit of a diminishing return in terms of revenue. And it's not about revenue, it's about keeping people off the road and dealing with complaints. So we can see the complaints went down from 286 to 160. And we can see in a 108-day period, 416 penalty notices were issued. So that's the sort of, I guess, volume that a system like this can generate. And by issuing those penalty notices, you have to get the driver's details, there's court, sending people evidence. So it can be significant work, which is why I think Hills have decided not to do it the whole time. It's kind of a 6 month on, 6 month off sort of program.
So the Hills have run this project 4 times, 3 times in the same sort of capacity, and the third time they did it, used it in a slightly different way. So we'll just sort of run through the stats from that. So the first 6 months they issued 54 penalty notices. This was a face value of fines of $70,000, and that was about 4 trucks per day they found doing the wrong thing. Then the second time that they ran the project, again, it was for 6 months, but the cameras were operational for sort of double the amount of time. This was, so it's at 87% uptime on these roads. They issued 523 fines, with the face value of the fines $755,000, and this was about 2.5 trucks per day. Then on the third time when they ran the project, this is when they used their system in a slightly different way. So a different team had seen what the compliance team had been doing, and asked to use the solution to be a deterrent for trucks using a temporary ton limited road while some construction works was being undertaken. So with this one, this wasn't, it was more about being a deterrent than issuing fines. So warnings were issued, only 5 fines were issued, and it was used predominantly as an additional traffic control measure. So this was again here for around 6 months as well. Then at the end of last year, and still running up until April this year, the project is back up and running, and so far they've issued 148 fines with a face value of $217,000. This is 1.25 trucks per day. So throughout the course of this project, particularly the difference between from the second time they ran it to the fourth time, they've seen a real reduction in trucks using this particular ton limited road as a thoroughfare. So they've seen a vast improvement from having this solution in place. Nathan, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, thanks, Kristen.
Thanks.
All right, so we're on to questions. We've had a few come through in the chat, but I think now is definitely the time to shoot some questions through. So one of the questions we've had about like how real time is it? The question is, what is the latency of the detections from the system? So the detections are in, I guess we call it near real time. There's no like deliberate built-in delay. There's no batch processing. The alerts kind of appear on your screen in the time it takes for them to be processed in the box and sent to the cloud. So it's a continual stream of questions that come through. So that's answer that question. Thank you. The next question, we kind of talked about it in the presentation. So this is saying heavy vehicle offences are driver related. How does your system manage that? So that's not managed within the system because the system doesn't have like drives access. It doesn't like know how to do those lookups. But what we provide is really excellent shots of the number plate and photographs of the vehicle. And then the compliance teams do the lookups and get the letters going out. I might just get Ben to fill in a little bit about exactly what the team's doing. Ben, if you're there we are, we're on the camera, thanks matey. If you're able to just maybe explain to people a bit more about how you handle this part of the process, that'd be super appreciated.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So we just work under, obviously, as you said, our state legislation, so the Road Transport Act and Road Transport General Regulation that allows us to, that allows us to send out notices of demands for information to owners of vehicles because there is a penalty for not providing driver's details. So that's how we process it. We look up, we use the free rego check or the drives registration check in New South Wales to look up the tear weight of the vehicle, and we then write to the owner of the vehicle, normally a company, sometimes an individual, and get them to nominate the driver. So we have a special form that we used to use before we used all this technology when we were operating under the same piece of legislation that's been around for a long time. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. Our current process is we send 3 letters before we will send a fine to either the company or we'll send it to the director of the company for failing to provide the details. So in a nutshell, that's how we do it, yeah.
Thanks, Ben. Let's wait for that person to add a follow-up if they have to that question. Can't see one. I'll move to the next question. I'm relatively new to working within councils. Who typically has the list of all road rules and signage within the LGA? So that's a great question. I might answer myself first in my experience, and then I'll fill it in from there. So what we've been asked is who typically has a list of all road rules or signage. So from our point of view, talking to 100 customers around the world, some councils have a decent list of signs. Most councils and LGAs don't have a decent list of signs that have been put up in the local government area. So there's like sign audit technology. SenSen has some great sign audit technology that can pick up those signs. Yeah, we don't know. Like some councils have clean data, but some councils need a bit of help tracking down all the road rules and signs in the areas. Ben, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just from the New South Wales example, I mean, our list of ton limited roads in our council, they had to be passed through at council level at one time or another historically. So traffic management teams will normally have a record of ton limited roads in New South Wales. The comparable types of roads, gross limit roads, restricted roads, whatever you want to call them in other states. I'm not sure what they're called, but yeah, I'd start with your traffic management if you're in council, because that normally when they designate a portion of a road, that normally goes to some sort of traffic management committee to make a decision on, to sign it off, to make it official. And we have, so once signs go in New South Wales, and I think it's the same for all areas of Australia where they call it a traffic control device. So they become like a stop sign, like a traffic light. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
I can answer. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. There's a few things coming through in the chat actually, which we might pick up on. So the first one is about wouldn't the system checking the free RMS rego check be more efficient? So that I'll answer that and then I'll pass to Ben. So a camera obviously can't weigh a truck, right? So all the AI can do is say it looks like a truck. And I believe the process is to do a free rego check to check the gross vehicle mass. Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, what Leon I think is getting at too is that because in New South Wales, the New South Wales or Transport New South Wales free rego check gives you the weight of the truck, it'll give you the tear weight and the gross weight, and we go off the tear weight if that could be integrated. But I remember we've had these conversations with you before, that Transport will not share that information, much like the disability permit system. They just won't share that in New South Wales, so it's very hard. We did ask the question a long time ago. We haven't asked it recently. It would be easier. But look, because we don't have SenSen system, so we use obviously your back-end system, and we lodge our own CSRs. Obviously, in New South Wales, I'd say a few of our New South Wales people on know that we use Tech One or Pathways, which other states use similar products as well. But we haven't done it through all the way through to CSR escalation, but it doesn't take us terribly long. And I guess it depends on the volume that you're processing about whether you want to make it perfectly seamless. But yeah, the reason we haven't done that is simply because of that. Transport wouldn't share that information. So
that's a good point. I think we'll ask again. That was a few years ago now in 2022. So yeah, thanks, Leon. We'll have a look into the API, because when we put the system together, we didn't. Yeah, that was back when we couldn't do that. But thank you. I see the thumbs up. Brilliant. Thanks, matey. I'm just going to move to there's a few more questions come through. Oh, this is a good one. It's price. So we actually had a chat before the call, and we've just agreed we'll just tell people the price of it, because what's the use of saying we'll send you a quote? But I keep forgetting the price. So Kristen, are you able to explain to people how this system's priced, subscription based, what the costs are?
Yeah, so we price it for two of the poles, and each have a camera on each. So that this can do sort of 2 lanes of traffic, one going sort of in one direction, one going in the other. The price is $36,000 for 6 months, or yes, essentially $6,000 a month. If you have a road that is, say, 4 lanes of traffic, we do have to put an extra camera on each pole, and this does increase the cost a little, and that makes it about $58,000 for the 6-month hire. We don't do the pricing as a outright like sale price. It's all sort of subscription based and hired price, but if that is something that you were interested in, we could definitely work something out for you.
Yeah, great. And so that includes pickup, drop off. Like we get one install and demobilization for that. If you want to move it within the 6 months, there's an extra fee to move it between different sites. But yeah, that's the pricing. So thank you. There's another question about how many departments did you need to get involved in getting this trial approved and implemented? Both Kristen and I have worked at councils, and we kind of know that you do have to talk to a few stakeholders to get this stuff up and going, but we might let Ben answer that. So the question, Ben, is how many departments did you need to get involved in getting this trial approved?
We consulted with our traffic management team, but we didn't actually need any formal approvals as such. We just got the GM to sign off it as a compliance project. And we had very specific targeted roads that we wanted to deal with the issue. We didn't even go to community consultation because we reasoned that the complaints were coming from the residents on these roads. They'd likely be supportive. So the decision was made to deploy it, get the signage right, and then just start from there. We just consulted with traffic management about whether there'd be any issues surrounding the placement of the poles, the cameras, whether it would impede anything or anything like that. But no, we found no barriers. Look, I will say there's a caveat to that, of course. We used them on much more rural type roads. So we have yet to do a full trial in a residential area, and that's something we're looking at a bit differently, because that probably will involve more community consultation, because putting these out the front of someone's place, even if they want the enforcement, is something we're going to have to look at a little bit differently. So we haven't experimented with that yet. We've done it on about 6 different roads. Most of our complained about roads are in the sort of rural and semi-rural areas, so that serves our purpose. They're the most complained about roads, but we have had lots of chats about moving them to some of these other roads, which will mean it'll be, on residential streets. So we haven't come into that yet, but I'd say it will probably just require a community consultation, which traffic management already have a bit of a model. They have templates, they have all the literature and everything that councils use to reach out to people for all sorts of projects. So that's probably the path we'd go down. We didn't have to liaise as well with IT for this project. Just done it all ourselves. It's worked through our customer service system. And as I said, we look at your back end, we raise the customer service requests ourselves and manage it internally, and all the other data that you have, and obviously gets managed and stored on your server. And yep, we didn't have to do anything through IT either.
I'm an ex-CIO at councils, so I'm sure IT would be very, very helpful and help you get this stuff done quickly. Okay, so the next question is about how quickly can this be in place? In New South Wales, probably 4 weeks from receipt of purchase order. In Queensland, probably 2 weeks from within receipt of purchase order. Victoria, maybe 6 weeks within receipt of purchase order. That's just based on where we have the green poles in stock or out with customers. So thank you for that. Any issues with privacy? I think we're using essentially a CCTV camera. So the use of it would be covered under council's CCTV policy. In terms of privacy, the system automatically blurs people. So if there's any people walking on the road past the camera, they'll just be blurred, like in the Google sort of Street View. Aside from that, we're capturing the license plate, which doesn't identify the vehicle until the council starts looking up the offending vehicle and writing letters to it. So we don't really see any issues with privacy. I think the guidance for people is it'd operate under your council's CCTV policy, and people are blurred. So there's no risk of pedestrians appearing and being stored in the footage. New question. Do you provide a service in New Zealand? We do have a few customers in New Zealand. So yes, this is something that we could do in New Zealand. Apologies if you've already got it covered, but how does it go at night? Yeah, so the cameras they have infrared, which is how you see things at night. There's some technology in the cameras called optimized IR. So you do get a really good night shot. I might just ask Ben. I don't look at the shots all the time. Ben, how's the night shots on the system?
Yeah, great. No issues at all. They're very clear. They're more in black and white, but there's obviously got that IR enhancement, and you can see the license plate perfectly, the vehicle perfectly. Sometimes you get a better outline of the person, weirdly, in low light, the way the IR sort of captures the figure. So no, we've had no problems.
There's a question here: how accurate is the truck? It's like the identification of the truck. So that's an interesting one. It's a bit of a pendulum. If we try and increase the accuracy at finding the truck, we might miss trucks. So what we do is we kind of make it a bit looser, and I'd suggest we're probably picking up the odd panel van, the odd sort of high ace. Ben would be able to talk about it better than me. But our goal is to find 100% of the heavy vehicles. So our accuracy at finding the heavy vehicles is 100%, but there are also some false positives there that kind of need to be measured separately. Ben, would you getting the odd panel van and the like?
I'd agree. Yeah, we do. We get the odd panel van and a slightly smaller truck, but depending on your road too, when we're doing a 3-ton road, you kind of want to get some of the lighter looking ones on there just to vet them. We only do things over a certain tear weight anyway. We're trying to get 5-ton on a 3-ton, but over on an 8-ton road, for instance, anything over 8 tons is a pretty big truck. So I think in the past when we've asked you to sort of tweak it and move it, but I mean, I haven't found us going through any cumbersome amounts of alerts to sort of sift through them, to find the bigger trucks. So they normally tend to stick out a bit, but I haven't seen cars and sedans and SUVs for a very long time since we started this. So
Okay, thanks, Ben. We haven't had any more questions come through. We might do like I'll talk for 5 seconds, giving people a chance to ask another question, or else we might wrap it up. We'll shoot the recording around to everyone who attended. Thank you for taking the time to attend, and we'll send the deck around and a bit of pricing. So I've talked for more than 5 seconds now, and we don't have any more questions. So I think we might wrap it up. So look, thank you everyone for coming. We're just about to stop recording and end the webinar. But yeah, please be in touch if you are having questions about the solution.